Hey everyone. I'm not gonna do my typical intro here because this isn't a typical review. But what I do want to talk about is, for those of you paying attention to my community post, on Monday I decided to sit down with my mother and watch the Red, White, and Royal Blue movie on Amazon Prime. I watched the movie, and for the most part, as a movie, it's perfectly fine. The two actors clearly did their best to make sure that the romance between Henry and Alex was completely believable. You got the sense that they very much wanted to convey what these characters and what their romance means. To the point that my mom is actually convinced that one of them must be, on the LGBT spectrum in order to portray it as well as they did. I'm not going to speculate personally. I looked it up. I'm not going to say I didn't look it up, but I'm not going to speculate. And as far as it goes when it comes to being a rom-com movie, much like the book, it handles both its romance and its comedy fairly well. Obviously, with an adaptation, they updated the comedy a little to make more sense in regards to the landscape of the time at 2023 versus 2019 when this was written. So you obviously have a few more updated comments there. As an adaptation, though, a couple of the things I did like was, for those of you who've watched my review, you know what some of the issues I had with the book was. And the movie sort of addresses it. One such thing is that I believe he was supposed to be a house member, but the gay congressman that Alex is friends with throughout the book, I am blanking on his name for some reason. So the congressman in the book that Alex is friends with, Raphael Luna, who is supposed to be the openly gay politician that seemingly betrays the campaign group to join the Richards campaign, is sort of, instead of being another congressman, is actually reduced to being just a Politico reporter. He is much more of a villain in this, not necessarily like a full-on antagonist, but he never actually tries to do anything good, so much as he's just looking for his next scoop. Another thing I did like that they changed was they did take a more realistic approach to the Midwest and flipping Texas Democratic. I mentioned in my review that one of the things that bothered me a little bit was the unrealistic expectations that Alex seemed to have when it came to flipping Texas. Or just flipping Texas in general. I'll just say that. To the point that we see in the book, he gets genuinely angry when someone tells him that Texas has a long history of being red. Trying to flip it to blue is going to be near impossible. And we do kind of get that. We do see that, yeah, he accepts that it's going to be really hard, but still wants to give it a good go. And obviously, there's a bit more of a personal stake attached as Texas ends up becoming the main flip state for his mother to win the campaign. And we get to see a lot more of his political efforts to flip Texas as opposed to him just kind of working in a campaign office. Another of the changes that I actually kind of liked to the movie from the book was that we actually get to see a little more of Henry's side of the romance. That one of the things that I commented on when I did my review was that Henry's side of the romance felt like the more interesting side when I read the book. That although Alex has his personality and has his good arc to go through, Henry was ultimately the one I felt would have been more emotionally resonant, due to the big climax being him coming out to his parents and forcing them to accept him. Whereas Alex grew up in a loving, accepting family, and they don't seem to really care beyond the political ramifications. So we do get to see Alex a lot more. We do get to see Henry's side a lot more, which was I'm very glad they did it. That being said, they did change a lot of things that I was not happy with. One of the biggest things they do is they reduce so many of the book's lovable characters to nothing more than, barely side characters and glorified cameos at best. June isn't even in the movie as far as I could remember, and I watched it yesterday. Nora is very much reduced. Beatrice is very much reduced, so they don't play the supporting sibling roles that they should be doing. Pez, who is this big ostentatious guy in the book, is reduced to nothing more than a cameo, where he's very drawn back from how he was described in the book, and his name is Percy. I don't get the name change. But Pez's entire contribution to the movie, as opposed to the book, is to show up, say, "Hello, Alex. I love your sister." And that's it. I think that's pretty much his only speaking line, is the line from the book where he very heavily compliments Nora because he likes how she looks. So he is so heavily reduced from what he was. Henry's mother isn't even really. Henry's mother isn't even in the movie. She's described as out saving the elephants, with Henry even saying, "Maybe if I had tush, she'd come home and love me." Basically, so yeah, that's there. One of the weird things that I thought they did, one of the changes that they obviously had to make to the movie, is that instead of the Queen of England, who was the Queen when the book was written, and was an obvious XP for Queen Elizabeth, they changed it to be a King of England. You know, I think Philip's on the crown now. I don't know my British politics very well. But, so obviously there's a King of England now, and Henry's brother, Prince Philip. One of the weird things they do is they kind of switch their roles in how they accepted Henry coming out. In the book, Prince Philip was very much the staunch traditionalist. I remember him saying he doesn't care that Henry likes men. He cares that Henry is ruining the royal family's image. He wants Henry to keep everything on the down low, so the public will see them as the traditional royal family that they always were. Whereas the Queen of England is the Queen of England, the monarch. I'll just say the monarch of England for ease here. The monarch of England was very much against him being gay. At least it felt like it. And kind of wanted him to go back into the closet and pretend to be straight. In the movie, they switched it around. Prince Philip is like just disgusted with the idea that his little brother is gay, whereas the king is basically like, we need to present a traditional image. It doesn't matter if you're gay, just what you present to the public. And the big moment of him accepting Henry doesn't really happen. Again, since they cut the mother entirely, there's no scene where the mother comes out and says, "You will accept my son the way he is, or you won't have a family." And so there's that kind of emotional resonance. It just kind of drops a lot of that emotional resonance that a lot of the characters had, and it very much is a detriment to the movie. And again, like I said, a lot of characters have been reduced to nothing more than glorified cameos. Shane. I apologize, I'm saying it wrong. This guy, the one that Zara is dating, he's basically nothing more than a glorified cameo himself. He makes 3 appearances in the movie. They completely cut the fact that Alex gets a huge crush on him. That's actually another thing I wanted to talk about. I don't necessarily hate this so much, but one of the arcs of the book that Alex went through was discovering his bisexuality and learning to accept that, yeah, I'm bisexual, because, you know, I used to date women, but now I'm having all these feelings for guys. And while there was an amusing scene in the book where he's like, but, you know, I used to kiss my friend all the time, but that's just what guys do, right? And, you know, it was played up for comedy that he was just so dense that he didn't understand that, you know, straight guys don't have makeout sessions with their friends for fun. With this, the way the movie did it is it gave Alex far more experience with his bisexuality. And it's not bad, but it does kind of relieve a bunch of that tension of him discovering it. Because it's not as much of a shock that he's bisexual when he's talking about how he's hooked up with 2 other men before in the past. One of them being the Rafael Luna, who, again, is now a Politico reporter rather than, you know, a senator or a congressman. I'll just say congressman. That's easy. But, so yeah, that's kind of one of those, it ruins it a little. Obviously, they switch a whole bunch of the scenes of the book around with the movie. The karaoke scene, for example, happens while they're doing the cabin retreat with Alex's dad. One of the things that annoyed me is they cut out a lot of the best scenes from the book in the movie. They cut out the PowerPoint presentation, for example, in the movie from Madam President, which was honestly one of the best scenes in the book because it was just hilarious. It was almost a little insulting because when they do that, they have by the way, Uma Thurman plays the mom. Plays Alex's mom. It's hilarious. It's great. I don't know why I say it's hilarious, but it's great. They even have her character make a joke. Well, if I had more time for you coming out, I would have made a PowerPoint presentation. And it's like, don't do that. Don't tease. Do the PowerPoint presentation or pretend it doesn't exist. Don't do this middle ground where you're like, I would have done one of the most famous scenes from the book, but I didn't have enough warning. But another one of the more egregious cuts of scenes that they brought up was the cornetto scene. You know, back when Henry and Alex are being forced to play nice and they're actually becoming friends. One of the big scenes that causes them to finally get past their hate of each other is when him and Alex and Henry basically sneak out into the middle of the night to the royal kitchens and eat cornettos together as they discuss their lives. Because of that, because they cut that scene, so it just kind of, Henry and Alex just sort of, they cut that scene, but the reason that annoys me so much is because they show it in the Amazon trailer. Legitimately, like, one of those scenes they show all the time whenever I'm watching something on Freevee that requires me to watch ads, is, if I remember right, Henry pushing the cornettos across the table, like, how are we going to convince the world that we're friends? And it's just sort of like, why advertise this famous scene so much if you were just going to cut it from the movie? Because you would know that it's a famous scene, but you're not going to deliver on it. So all in all, I guess before I ramble too much, this isn't really a movie review channel. At least not yet. I thought about doing movie reviews based on adaptations, talking about, you know, the book versus the movie and all that. But as far as it comes to as an adaptation, really the movie isn't a great adaptation. As a movie by itself, it's good. It's good. Like I said, it really does do the romantic comedy well. One of the things that... Okay, another thing to talk about here before I, finally talk it off. One of the things that I note that they did is they brought down a lot of the more fairy tale elements. So, on one hand, I do enjoy the more realistic look at it, but on the other hand, without those fairy tale elements, that modern day fairy tale feel to it, some of the scenes that happen in the movie versus the book feel less forgivable as opposed to what they're like in the book. But anyways, yeah, as an adaptation, it's not great. Personally, I think the book is the far superior version. And I did enjoy the movie, but I would say that it works best as a movie by itself, and you don't compare it to the book. It's fine, but as far as it goes as an adaptation, it's good on a general sense, but when you look at the heart of the book, it fails. So I just figured I'd put that out there, let you guys know what I thought about it. That's been all for me. So, see you later, everyone.